We're on the Cincinnati.
When I woke up this morning, I was feeling pretty dangerous.
About the past and about the future.
Welcome back to Draftvice. We are here. It is now. Super Bowl is coming, but the offseason is here. So we're here to talk about two teams, right? But here we are at Draftvice. I got our buddy here, Harry Van Ness.
Hello.
Wearing a Jamal Adams jersey. We are not talking about the Jets today,
No,
folks.
we are not.
He's just distracting you. It is a mirage.
It's a Pro Bowl. He's the only Jet Pro Bowler this year, so
There's usually only one every 10 years,
yes.
given how the Jets roll.
And he did it twice, so that makes him that much good, and why we should extend him right fucking now.
Well, there you go, folks. That is our Jets commentary for the day. If you want, you can follow the podcast at Draftvice on Twitter, at Draftvice_football on Instagram. You could follow me at Brojo Death Punch. It's BROJO. Death as that thing you do when you're no longer living. And punch, that thing you do when you're an MMA fighter and you're throwing those things with your fists.
At your wife.
At your wife, yes. You don't even have to be an MMA fighter. You could just be Greg Hardy.
Ooh. Or from Florida.
Yes, and you can follow Harry at Harry Van Ness. Or you can just follow him.
Yeah, just follow.
Like when he leaves. You
just kidnap me later.
Yeah. Get a van and kidnap Harry Van Ness.
But you won't get much for ransom.
That is the sad part of the story.
You'd probably actually be paying my family to take me back.
So anyway, we are here. Oh, sorry for interrupting. You're talking about your family taking you back?
Yeah, they'd probably just pay us to take him back.
So yes, well, hopefully they care about you enough. Maybe they would give a couple of nickels, or they can maybe crowdfund it.
Yes.
Maybe one of these teams.
Indiegogo my ransom money.
One of these teams might donate, right? Might have the cap space to go ahead and buy your freedom.
Probably not the Rams.
Probably not the Rams, and that is the first team we're doing.
But just to digress, speaking of Los Angeles sports, unfortunately, Kobe Bryant was killed in a helicopter crash today, and we'd just like to offer condolences to Kobe's family and Lakers Nation out there.
Yes. And so back to the Rams.
Yes, the Rams.
By the way, that was a crazy thing that happened.
I know.
But just breaking news. So L.A. Rams got $20,000 in cap space. It was not a great year for the Rams.
It was not. They came off a Super Bowl appearance, and then they ended up going third in their division.
And I think it was O-line struggles. That was the big thing. Everybody was like, okay, are they going to be back this year? And I was one of the people who called it last year. I said, listen, they lost a lot of interior O-line. We're not entirely sure that those guys are going to really, be able to replace their center, be able to replace Saffold, the guard. And Whitworth is coming up at, he's going to be 192 next year. Yeah. He's now going to be a free agent, one of the fucking free agents in the LA Rams grouping.
Todd Gurley's injury struggles really slowed him down the end of last year and then pretty much all of this year.
I don't know if Gurley's struggles this year were injury because every other running back they had on the team couldn't do anything.
Yeah, true.
And also teams caught on to what they were able to do.
Yeah.
Eventually, some teams played that, 5 defensive front with a 1 linebacker, being able to stop the play action. And also they adapted. Let's just say this, the LA Rams did adapt a bit, did a lot more 2 tight end sets. So the LA Rams, I think they have a good coach on their hands, right?
Yes,
Sean
McVay, awesome coach.
Problem, right? Not a lot of money. They got a lot of free agents walking away. We got a piece of paper here.
We do.
I count it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Five people walking in free agency are about to walk in free agency who were key players. Dante Fowler, Andrew Whitworth, Michael Brockers, Corey Littleton, Greg Zuerlein. And, the hero, Blake Bortles. All that time he played.
Ripping SIGs, baby.
Yeah. And then there's a whole host of other guys who are, just backups. Bryce Hager, JoJo Natson. Those guys will probably be re-signed or maybe not at all. But that team has a lot of issues, a lot of holes, and they only have about $20 million in cap space, give or take. And they don't have a lot that they can clear, right? Maybe they can cut Eric Weddle. They can maybe cut Clay Matthews, and that would probably, Clay Matthews would clear up about $3 million, $4 million, and Eric Weddle would clear up about another $4 million. So that's still not a lot of room.
No, it is not.
And this is a team that needs offensive line, that needs to re-sign Andrew Whitworth if he's even coming back. He might be retiring after this year. Yep. He's, like I said, he's ancient. He's been around, folks. He's been around
Like,
since
how long? Like 12, 13 years at least.
Oh, I was just thinking like I thought he's been in the NFL since it started. Like I thought he was 102. He is old, folks. He started late. He was like an older offensive lineman. Like he's been around for like 10 years, but he also was like 27, 28 when he really started getting his start.
Ooh, yeah.
So he was a much older offensive lineman. They need offensive linemen. They also don't have any first round picks because they traded for Jalen Ramsey.
See how well
after
that
trading
happened.
away Marcus Peters.
Who's ended up going on to the Pro Bowl with the Baltimore Ravens.
Yeah, so that started looking like a great plan. Great strategy, folks.
See how that paid off.
Really well. Listen, I like Ramsey.
I love Ramsey.
He's on a 5th-year option this year, so maybe they try to work out a deal to get him extended. Here's the problem. No first-round pick means that you can't you can't put money back into. You can't put players back into the roster for cheap deals. The rookie contract is kind of the saving grace of being in the NFL. You can replenish your roster for cheap pay. It's kind of like slavery, in that way, kind of like
bit.
morbidly so. But they're not forced to work, so that's the one upside. But they are told where they have to go, and they're given like a specific pay that they're allowed to get. It's a lot of money compared to what normal people make. But so we're not relitigating the rookie wage scale. What I'm saying is it is a tool for teams that are talented, that have a lot of big money contracts to replenish their roster. And the Rams have said, no, we don't want that shit.
That's how the Cowboys were good for the past couple of years. They had Dak and Zeke on rookie deals.
Yeah, and now they're paying Jared Goff. They have Todd Gurley on a cancerous contract. They have they paid Aaron Donald. They're gonna probably pay Jalen Ramsey, and like I said before, there's not a lot of like space they can make. There's a lot of dead cap on these contracts if you get rid of them. So the real trick is you're gonna have to make those mid-round picks count. You're gonna have to make your second-round pick count for something. And now guard-wise, they traded last year for Austin Corbett. They tried finding. I think they played Bobby Evans towards the end of the year, who actually showed a little bit well at right tackle. So they might switch him around, maybe put him at left tackle, or maybe put him at right guard. If Haverstein plays well this year, who knows? That's the right tackle for him. Guy, again, who they can't get rid of because he has a big contract. He played well 2 years ago. But offensive line is about cohesion. You need everybody on you need at least like some consistency on the offensive line. If you have three All-Pros, this is basically the Dallas Cowboys offensive line argument. You have 3 All-Pros and a couple of average players, you're gonna have a great O-line.
Yeah.
If you have 3 great interior guys and you have bad tackles, well, at least you have the interior push of the pocket's pretty decent. This is what happened with the Browns 2 years ago. They had a good interior. They didn't have anybody at tackle though. Sometimes you have the reverse, right? You have teams that they have a good center, good tackles, like the Kansas City Chiefs, right? They have Mitchell Schwartz and Eric Fisher. When we do our
Super Bowl preview,
I'll be talking about them and their matchups. But they found guys off the street who could play guard or center, and they played well for them. So this is a team that their offseason is going to be weird, right? They're going to have to find guys in late rounds. They better be good at scouting. They better make sure they are hopefully they were at the Senior Bowl last week. There was a couple of good guys at the Senior Bowl. 2 big ones was Jonah Jackson of Ohio State. And then there's a small school guy that was making headlines, Bergstrom, who, again, when we go into the college, the NFL draft previews, we will be talking about these players, folks. I think it's going to be an interesting year for them, but they have to fix either the interior, and they probably have to get a tackle, and they don't have a first-round pick. This is crazy. I don't get why you would trade all your first-round picks. They still have, again, they have a lot of weapons, right? They have Robert Woods, Cooper Kupp,
Brandon Cooks,
and they, like I said, they don't have a lot that they can make room with. So they're kind of struck. Maybe they trade a little bit, try to find some cheap contract guys, maybe find some cast-offs. A couple of guys who I noted for free agency for them, guys who might be cheaper contract guys as far as tackles go. DJ Humphries of the Arizona Cardinals, probably not going to be back next year. for the Arizona Cardinals, but he showed up a little bit better this year, taking a step forward. We're starting to see some of these late stage tackles playing a little bit better. Another guy who could pay attention to, Greg Robinson, right?
Yep.
Greg Robinson's played okay on the Browns. I'm not quite sure he's going to be back with the Browns. He was on a 1-year deal, played for $8 million. Probably can get him for about $10 to $12 million dollar deal. Another guy who you might want to pay attention to, though, is Trent Williams, right? We talk about this guy every time we're talking about a team that needs a tackle. Another guy who potentially could be a trade or cut candidate for the Redskins. Probably a trade candidate. So we talked about him a couple
weeks ago
when we talked about the Redskins. He's, like I said, trade candidate, has a $12 million contract. Probably would want an extension a little bit, but at least that you're not blowing up your spot with it. So, and then one guy who we're going to talk about later when we talk about the Cincinnati Bengals is Cordy Glenn, who has a $9 million contract, who also might be a guy who might no longer be on the Bengals starting next year. So there's a couple of tackle guys who can kind of reach out to grab. Brian Bulaga, another one, right tackle. Mm-hmm. But they're looking for left tackle, folks. That's kind of the only major problem. Not a lot of left tackles on the market. Most people don't let their left tackles walk away. So, what do you think? What do you think with where they should go? I think honestly they just got to focus on that offensive line. I think for me personally,
because also that also exposed Jared Goff this year. Also, I was never high on Jared Goff, but he did play pretty well the past 2 years. But this year he took a big drop off, and the offensive line is a big part of that.
Yeah, and not for nothing, they're gonna go into this year with, if Whitworth retires, they're gonna have nobody.
Yeah.
So, it looks like they're gonna. It's potential that the step back from this year might go backwards even more. They didn't really replenish the back end of the roster. Like I said, Nickel Roby-Coleman was another cut candidate because he has not any money left on the contract, but he played pretty decent. Now they did just get rid of Wade Phillips, the defensive coordinator for the Rams. He is no longer on that team. They went younger at D coordinator. I'm not entirely sure how I feel about that. He was a guy who had head coaching experience.
He was loved in the locker room.
Listen, if you look at their Super Bowl not too long ago, he was the reason why they were even in it the whole game. Yeah. They were coordinated very well on the defensive side.
And they more than held their own against the New England Patriots.
Who at that time actually had an offense.
Shocking to believe.
Recent memory might have you believe that they do not ever have offense. But keep in mind, this is back when they had the Gronk guy, that Hogan dude, and the Edelman. The Edelman was there too at one point, so and still there, and Dorsett. They just had more consistency on their offense back then. Not anymore. We're talking about the Patriots, but we're not talking about the Patriots. We're talking about the Rams.
Yes.
So I don't see them bouncing back from this. I really don't. Me neither. It's going to be a rough year next year. I kind of thought this was where it was going. They found a good this is what happens when you get. This is why draft picks are important.
Yeah, they made a gamble train for all these guys so they could to win it, but obviously it did not pay off, and they're paying the price. Yeah, I would not be surprised to see them go last in their division next year because 49ers, we see what they're doing this year. Seahawks can't count them out with Russell Wilson, and also the Cardinals. I don't expect them to be a playoff team, but I still expect them to play better. Kyler Murray did phenomenal for what he was given, and I can only see him getting better as well.
Yeah. So, now we're done talking about them, right? Because I don't know what you could do. There's not much you can do with this team, and they are in a really weird structure. Like I said, they're gonna have to get guys. They might be able to trade away Robert Woods and maybe draft somebody. Beyond that, they don't have a lot they can do. I'm thinking this next team, we're going to talk about the Cincinnati Bengals.
Yes, sir, the Bungles.
The Cincinnati Bengals, right? The old Fairly Odd Parents team. Yeah,
I remember that.
Cosmo and Wanda were big fans, I believe.
Yes.
So Cincinnati, number 1 overall pick. Is it already set in stone with Joe Burrow?
Yes, I can't see them going for anybody else.
Yes, but there are rumors, folks, and rumors we don't care about. But in theory, they could go Herbert. That's been the rumor recently. out of the Senior Bowl. I think they got some time with Herbert. I think it was they went to the Senior Bowl. They got to be around Herbert. Ooh, he's shiny. He's nice. He did well in the Senior Bowl practices. I still don't see them going Herbert over Burrow or Tua. Certainly not over Burrow. This team has a lot of issues though. Like, they have a lot of free agents that are coming up. They have AJ Green. They Darqueze Gennard is actually the one I was thinking it was the most important one, though. Defensive player, played really well in the slot. Now, he's come back a few times. They can't afford to lose more players on defense. They actually have been a good passing defense. Actually, I think their biggest problem is coaching. Like, Bengals should have been one of the teams that fired their coach this year after a one and done.
Yeah.
I am not a fan of Zach Taylor. I have been open about it. Now, the good thing is, right, Joe Burrow's offense at LSU ran pretty much the same thing that Sean McVay runs.
Yeah.
They run that slot receivers kind of playing tight end hybrid situation, which, listen, Tyler Boyd fits that very well. He fits that Robert Woods, Cooper Kupp role very well. So I can see this being a good thing. You need to get weapons for the kid, and you need to get him protection, right?
Yes.
I'm not talking about condoms, although that too. And don't make out with anybody if you haven't had any mono. Get your mono shot. That's got to be a thing. Somebody's got to get a shot for mono.
Sam Darnold.
Yeah, so, he's had the mono. Can't get it twice.
Can't get it twice.
That's the good thing. That's why it's called mono, folks. It's not called stereo. I actually don't. That's not what stereo is about, but okay. No. Mono is one, though. So, with the Cincinnati Bengals, they got the number 1 overall pick. They have all their picks, right? And they might even get a couple of actually, the Rams might have a couple of fourth-rounder compensatory picks as well. So these guys might get some compensatory picks coming up, both teams, because they lost some players in free agency. The Bengals, though, have all their picks. First overall pick, Joe Burrow. I think a cool thing, though, and one of the things that's been pitched before is maybe they go ahead and do some trading down. What do you think of the trade down scenario? What if like the Miami Dolphins come to you and say, "Hey, yo Bengals, I got an offer for you. I got all these first round picks. What am I gonna do with these first round picks? You look like you're drafting number 1 overall. I can get myself a quarterback. You guys, you haven't been good in a while. Come drop down to here. We get a quarterback. You guys could go do your thing, or anybody else. You get some first round picks for next year, like maybe the Detroit Lions, who everybody keeps rumor. No, they're not going to do it. That's the weird one that was coming out last week, was the Detroit Lions are gonna take a quarterback and not stick with the Matt Stafford. I don't believe it. Too much guaranteed money on that contract. Yeah. They're trying to pump up.
Plus the Lions have other problems right now, and Matt Stafford hasn't been bad or anything.
No, their problem wasn't even offense; it was defense. Yeah. So let's back to the other cat team we're talking about, the Bengals, right? The Cincinnati Bengals. They have Burrow. I like Jonah Williams. Hopefully he comes back. He plays well hopefully he plays well in his new year as a tackle. He didn't play at all last year. That was the guy who they drafted first round last year. Cordy Glenn didn't do anything. They have a couple of guys leaving for the offensive line, which that's never good if you have a bad offensive line to have even more of your guys leaving. Alex Richmond's a restricted free agent. What were you saying?
No, I was going to say, especially with the young quarterback coming up also.
Yeah, this is a team that needs offensive line, right? This is a team, and we say that every week, I feel like it's. But good thing is, good offensive line draft, and they're in a spot, their second round pick is high. It's the number 1 overall, second overall pick. Whatever words that means.
First pick in the second round.
Exactly. Yes. That's what Walter means by number 1, second overall pick. They are the first pick in the second round, number 33 on your boards, folks. There's going to be some offensive linemen in this draft who might fall to that. There's going to be, maybe they could trade up and get a falling Andrew Thomas of Georgia. There's also some guards in this draft I was talking before. Jonah Jackson, Burt Bergstrom, these guys who did well at Damian Lewis of the LSU. Damian Lewis might fall like third round area. Good, top 100 player, man. These LSU guys, there's 3 LSU offensive linemen coming out this year. And I didn't know LSU was even like a good offensive line school. You'd think so while watching Joe Burrow. But then like other people are like, no, they weren't that great of an offensive line. But dude, they got a center in Cushenberry, who I think is going to be good. And fits, again, that system. By the way, if you're getting Joe Burrow, getting a center,
that's match made in heaven.
Yeah, I think that's a good like third round, second round guy who they can try to target. Another, like I said, Damian Lewis, guard out of LSU. He's got an anchor, man. Like there's like 3 guards that were at the Senior Bowl this year. I think we're all kind of good guards, and that people are going to target. One from LSU, one from Ohio State. Another one's a small school guy. Like I said, we're going to break some of those guys down in like a month. So tune in for that. They need an offensive line. I do like they gave money to Trey Hopkins, their center, who has played well. They have Cordy Glenn. I had talked about Cordy Glenn literally about 10 minutes ago on this show,
yes,
right? Cordy Glenn, he is not getting along with the coaching staff, folks. He did not anyway. He played a little bit at the end of the year, and guess what? He was the best offensive lineman at the end of the year when they play. He played initially, he wasn't great, and then the last couple of games where he did play, he actually played kind of well. Shockingly enough, like as if, hey, we traded for this guy, we signed, he had a decent deal. Here's the thing: if they're not going to keep him, trade him, get some picks for him, build up your team, build up around the Joe Burrow, right? You got Jonah Williams, good, right? I think he's coming back from a torn labrum, but we'll see something with that. You got Alex Redmond, who's I think going to be a restricted free agent. You also have John Jerry, who's, he was a depth guy for them. They have Miller as well on that offensive line. They have Bobby Hart. You remember Bobby Hart? Any Giants fans? Bobby Hart. The Bobby Hart was not that great of a right tackle, but he's a serviceable guy. So, and he's on a contract, so he's there. Yeah. They have Bobby Hart at right tackle. Like I said, they could probably trade up and get a couple of guards or tackles. Also, receiver AJ Green might be a free agent. Might be gone. Could be gone. Might be there on the franchise tag.
I don't see him coming back, honestly.
I don't know. I think he likes it there. Hey, $18 million, man. Nobody's looking away from $18 million.
True.
That's an AJ Green thing.
But you also have to live in Cincinnati, so there's that. So.
I heard horrible things about Skyline Chili, and yet good things about Skyline Chili. It's kind of weird.
Joe Burrow may fall in the draft because he says not a fan of Skyline Chili.
I heard that. That's I guess if you're trying to get drafted by a Cincinnati team, that's not going to win you any spots there. That team is oddly talented, right? Like they have Tyler Boyd, they have John Ross, they have AJ Green, Joe Mixon, Gio Bernard, Tyler Eifert, another guy walking into free agency. But I don't even know if they bring him back. Honestly, I think at this point, he's been
so. It's like he's a good tight end, but yet he's hurt all the time.
He barely plays. You're signing him to these like $2 million a year deals. Maybe he likes it there. Maybe they just like him there. Maybe they think, hey, you know what? We'll keep him this year because again. So I can't believe we're not talking about the elephant ginger in the room.
Yes,
the Andy Dalton.
The
what
Red
do they
Musket.
do with the Andy Dalton?
Say you trade him.
You think they're going to trade him?
Yes. He knows he's going to lose the job eventually, Joe Burrow. So might as well trade him, maybe get a pick or two, and then bring in a stopgap guy like Case Keenum, who is the ideal quarterback for the situation. Play probably maybe like a first 5-10 games in the year. Just gives Joe Burrow some time to learn the offense. It takes some pressure off of him, and when Joe Burrow is ready, he'll be in. Like we know they're not going to make the playoffs this year anyway.
So the big question is, where do they trade Andy Dalton to?
New England.
You think it's going to be a New England team? It's going to be that New England team that's that potentially is losing to Tom Brady. That makes some sense. I think one of the teams that might be interesting, a team that's very similar to the Cincinnati Bengals, the LA Chargers.
That does make sense because they're going to lose Phillip Rivers this year.
Losing Phillip Rivers, but they probably want a guy who can come in and start right away, even if they draft a quarterback. By the way, I think Herbert.
I think
Herbert and Sherbert or Love.
I'm not a big fan of that because I'll say this right now. I've been a Tyrod Taylor apologist for years. I think Tyrod Taylor's a better quarterback than Andy Dalton, and they already have him.
Andy Dalton did get Tyrod Taylor to the playoffs.
That he did do.
He beat the Ravens in the last game of that season, where they went to the playoffs the first time in 20 years.
He did do that.
Andy Dalton ended the Bills' playoff drive. That's why the Bengals and the Bills love each other. They're like, what? Andy Dalton? Yeah, thanks, dude. I actually do think Tyrod Taylor gets a little bit of a bad flack. I think he's like, I feel like Tyrod Taylor's basically Case Keenum, though. It's like you're not horrible, but what am I getting out of you, and how can I make this work is kind of the problem. Like I like Tyrod Taylor and I like Case Keenum, but they are in that like fringe starter backup role territory. So, Teddy Bridgewater's another one of those guys where it's like I don't know what you are.
But to be fair, I don't think we've seen enough out of Teddy Bridgewater because
especially since he had a new knee.
Yeah.
Yes. So Bengals are gonna have Joe Burrow. They probably want to surround him with some more weapons, maybe some guys that he's familiar with. Like I said, offensive linemen out of LSU are coming out. Defensively, this defense got ran on. Like, I was able to run on this defense. Actually, I was in a game this year, and I ran around the defense. It was ridiculous. They were run on. Now, towards the end of the year, they kind of clamped down. But, like, for the most part, they had a rough year at defense.
Yes, they did.
Everybody was running over them for, like, the first 10 weeks of the year. They need some run stuffing D tackles, or they need to get better at linebacker. They have good corners. They probably need another one. They probably need a third corner. Maybe a Henderson, somebody who falls out of the first round. But I still don't know how you go ahead and go with this team without drafting any offensive lineman. You need to go offensive lineman.
Yeah.
And you also, you might want to start thinking about who's going to replace Joe Mixon. Or sign him.
Yeah.
We didn't go over the cap space for this team, by the way. $48 million, right?
Yeah.
Sounds like a lot. Then you find out who's the owner, and you're like, oh, he doesn't like spending money anyway.
Yeah.
We're going to have $48 million, but we're not going to be using most of the money, and not a lot of it's going to be guaranteed. So you have a hard time pulling people into that spot. The Bengals have very interesting pass rushers. They have Carl Lawson, Carlos Dunlap, Geno Atkins, but they just never seem to be able to stop the fucking run.
Nope.
Darquez Denard, we were talking about before, another guy who kind of plays slots, corner, safety. He's good. Again, you have to re-sign him because you want to keep that. You don't want to lose defensive depth, right?
Nah.
You want to keep guys going. You want to keep guys in there to be able to cover. They have Bates at safety. He's been good. I think maybe another receiver if they're losing A.J. Green. If they're not going to keep A.J. They should have traded A.J. That was a big mistake on their end. This is why I never understand that team with like how they handle trades. Like they never do. They almost never do trades mid-season. They're always so worried about what slot they're getting. And I get it, and at the same time, I don't. These are two teams very much tied to each other. They have, similar offensive ideologies. They're probably going to run the same offensive scheme. And the problem is teams are catching on to it, too.
Yeah.
The 11 personnel, but slot receiver uses a tight end. The good thing is I think Joe Burrow can adapt to that. I think, first off, he's coming from an offense that did a very similar thing. You know what? I think it's going to be an interesting draft for them. If it was me, I would trade down. But it is not me. I'm not in charge.
Nope. All right.
So anyway, thank you for tuning into the Draftvice. I am Walter.
And this is Harry.
And you can follow the podcast at Draftvice on Twitter, at Draftvice_football on Instagram. You can follow me at Brojo Death Punch. It's BROJO. Death and Punch. No and. It's just Death Punch.
Yeah.
And you can follow Harry at Harry Van
Ness.
There we go.
Real hard to remember.
I almost forgot.
Yes.
So anyway, the Super Bowl week, we are going to also do a Super Bowl episode.
And it's going to be super.
We're on to Cincinnati.
When I woke up this morning, I was feeling pretty dangerous.
About the past and about the future.